Welcome to Hot Topics. And in this conversation, Andy and I are going to be talking about elevating your team performance, which is the next stage of the EYC Business Learning Academy. So hi, Andy, let's get started, shall we? Talking about team performance.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And well, they're all interesting, Phil. But it's certainly something that I would argue we spend most of our time talking with therapy business owners around is their team, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it's helping improve them or problem solving for them or with them.
It's kind of the worry, isn't it, to get started? Because most of us actually start off either having worked somewhere else before or starting off as, you know, a one-person band, as it were.
No,
and the whole idea of then having to kind of develop and manage a team can seem like quite a scary prospect, I think.
I think it's also the fact it's about finding balance, isn't it? In my opinion. And also, you know, depending on the size of your team, it's how to handle and manage all the personalities, isn't it, that come with it. That's the bit that, in my experience, you know, my teams have never been as big as the ones that you used to manage in your previous life. But certainly the thing for me was, and the learning curve was, you know, is managing the personalities and how they, you know, and especially how you have to adapt yourself. I guess that was a big thing that my learning curve was always, you know, you couldn't, one size didn't fit all. You had to be some people needed micromanaging and then others, you just leave them alone.
I think the other interesting thing for me is the comparison, because as most of our listeners know now, my background isn't originally in the therapy world, but I did used to work with quite a number of highly qualified professionals, experts, technicians in their trade, and I suppose that's the read across for me into clinical world, in the sense that people were perhaps really good engineers and they loved to design things, but actually even when they got the job of manager, they still like to design things. You know, the problems that existed within the team almost didn't exist because their whole focus was on designing. So they loved a bridge, or they loved to design a building, or, you know, as an engineer. So it was, you know, the actual leadership management, the team performance piece almost, you know, didn't figure on the radar. And that's where I think there's a bit of a read across to the fear perhaps in some of the minds of clinicians who then suddenly have leadership management and teams to develop.
Yeah, certainly. I think whatever sector you're in, it is people, isn't it? You know, you are just managing and leading people, and that's where the skills cross over as well. You know, and I would argue for a lot of therapists, these are skills that we've, you know, if you're an engineer, but you sit at a desk with a computer, you know, those skills might be new. As therapists, most of us, you know, dealing with one-to-one with people is something that we've done for years. That's what we do. So actually, there's a lot of skills that a lot of these owners have already got ingrained in them. It's just learning how to apply them in a different way.
Transfer that skill set. Yeah. So I guess that moves us. So we've got 6 themes, haven't we?
We've got 6 themes in it. Yeah.
And the first one we're going to talk about is recruiting good people. And I guess that's a wonderful overlap, because actually finding people is more of a challenge in the marketplace today, but it's a bit more than just banging an advert out, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's definitely something that we probably see a lot of social media posts about, people struggling to do this, but it's also where, you know, developing a team and recruit all starts with recruiting the right people as well, doesn't it? So actually it's so important to get it right and understanding the process. But I agree with you. I think it's more than just, you know, 20 years ago, I always reflect when I was applying, you know, you could stick a job advert out and, you know, people would apply. I think the world is changing now, and I think there's lots of opportunities for where people need to go. So an awful lot of this now, I think, is in a business. You've got to be prepared to kind of almost pitch to get the right person, haven't you?
Most certainly. I think you've got to make, my own sense is you've got to have a very clear view about the skill set that you need for your particular business and your particular geography. And then rather than here's a job, apply for it and come and work for me, we're almost in a consumerist environment where now as an organization, we need to say, well, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is what it's like to work for us. You know, it's almost like an invitation there to come and have a conversation. So actually developing your brand and reputation as a clinic is really important if you want to consider attracting some of the best people that would fit the job role that you've got, which means you need to put some effort in the first place, actually, to understand the core skills of the job, which is beyond, you know, clinical knowledge and expertise is assumed, but needs to be verified. But actually, the skill set of the individual in terms of how they work with clients becomes of paramount importance.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely point, you know, because I think it is understanding the core skills that that's required in your business as well at that time as well, isn't it? You know, and they're the other things, isn't it? If you've already got a team, you've got to think of what is going to be a complement service, complementary skills to come across. But I think that then leads us, doesn't it, about you bring people in, and you know, and then to develop them, and then how do you help them once they're in? You know, it's not just about, is it recruiting good people, giving them a pat on the back and say, right, crack on. You know, you've then got to, how do you do that? And I think that's a great skill, isn't it? Training other people, developing other people.
Yeah, it is. And for me, I think it starts with the end of the recruitment process, where actually you've got a really effective induction process, which is often overlooked. You know, okay, we're skilled experience, you've got 5 years knowledge and working somewhere else. Come in, you know, your first client is 10 minutes after you walk through the door, and off you go. And that's clearly not going to get you a great outcome in terms of how you run your business, but it's also not going to give you a great outcome for the person that's joining you. So actually setting out, kind of clinical education's assumed, isn't it, in our conversations? You know, it's there. The question then is, how are you going to develop and grow the individuals in your organization actually to have the skill set, the knowledge and the understanding that you need in your environment, which kind of relates to the conversations we often have about our 10-step customer journey, doesn't it? So how do your own people kind of understand that journey and can apply their knowledge and skills in a way that kind of works for your business?
I think that's a really key point, isn't it? That, you know, we've mentioned it before, and I think it's important that we highlight it again, that anyone joining your organization will have a way of doing things because of where they've worked previously or where they've experienced previously. You know, so we can't assume that because, like you said, they've got experience, that they're automatically they're going to match exactly what you want. You know, so making sure that you take that time, effort, and energy at the induction stage to take them through a process where they feel comfortable as well. So they do what you want them to do, so that you get the outcomes that you want from business operations perspective, but also they feel comfortable that they're not left there dangling. And then it's what is the pathway? You know, hopefully, you know, you've got somebody that's got a bit of ambition that is going to be with you for some time. So then it's thinking about how to then develop them over the lifetime of their career at your company, isn't it?
It is, and that moves us on, I guess, to team players, which is something else that we think about a lot. So bringing in, there's lots of sporting analogies here, which I guess read across, but you know, you can put a group of individuals onto any kind of playing surface, and if they don't work, they can be the best. They can be individually the best they can be, but actually, if they don't work together, then actually you're never going to achieve truly high performance. So focusing on getting the right blend, helping people to learn to work together effectively is the key to any organization, I think.
I totally agree. And I think that's something which I think your sporting analogy is right in the sense of, you can't have all individuals just working in a company or a business. It just doesn't, everyone's got to be able to support each other and help each other and rely upon. And that's why it's important that, we talk an awful lot about accountability and responsibility.
Yeah.
And how does that play across your business is really important.
So there's quite a bit of content there about how to work with and develop your team along the way, which moves us on, I think, to what we've called creative problem solving, which probably isn't. It's an interesting title, and it's the truth, but it's deeper than problem solving, I think, for me, because it's about engaging everybody in your business in understanding the business in terms of what good looks like, and then encouraging people to get engaged and to help learn and improve so that you get a higher performing set of individuals, a higher performing team, and as a consequence, a higher performing business. And I know this is something you and I have talked about quite a bit in the past.
Yeah, I mean, and hopefully everyone listening recognizes that they probably don't have all the answers. And what's quite cool when you start to develop a team is you've got more eyes on things in your business. So actually taking the time to ask people's opinion or given the autonomy to make those decisions in certain cases, and certain individuals, that it's amazing the ideas that people can come up with, and we've always had, rightly or wrongly, we've always had this culture where you can challenge up. So even the newest physio that's joined the team can go, I think there's a better way of doing that. All right, go on then. How do you think we could do it? I think if we do it like this, that's a really good idea. Does everyone agree? You're like, cool, let's trial it. And so I think it's a really nice, I agree with what you're saying, the title, but I think the title, I like it in the sense that I think it does what it says on the tin. It helps people get creative solving problems, which again is the role of what therapists, it's what we do day to day, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's transferring those skills into how you run and manage your business. No,
certainly.
Yeah.
Now, this next one, performance conversations, I smile in the sense of it's hard, isn't it? If you're unfamiliar with doing it, I think. But I know this is something which you're very good at coaching other people on how to do very well. So do you want to I'll leave this one to you, performance conversations, Phil.
I think it's interesting because if any individual working with an organization isn't clear about what's expected of them, then there's potential cause for conflict. Now that can break down into many different facets of how the business runs. So it can be the dangerous assumption that as an experienced clinician, they're gonna perform in the way that you expect them to in the treatment room, which may be technically brilliant, but actually in terms of relationship management, in terms of developing rapport, in terms of encouraging people to follow their recovery pathway from start to finish, and get a good reputation for not only them, for the business in terms of future referrals. If that's an ideal, then if all of that is assumed, then it actually does become quite difficult for any individual in an organization of any size, frankly, to know what it is they're expected to do and whether or not they're performing to the right levels and standards. And that can cause frustration. And usually where that's not clear, you get some friction. And when you get friction, that's kind of generally uncomfortable for you, uncomfortable for colleagues within your organization. And if you don't act to resolve these minor problems as they start to arise, then you get a big headache, because all of a sudden then you've got a major problem to solve. Very occasionally in my experience, you do get somebody who doesn't fit and frankly needs to leave the organization, and you need a fair process in which to to enable them to leave and to move on to better things, and for other people in your organization to feel that that individual was dealt with and well treated as part of that process. And if you've not been involved in that before, then that can feel like quite a scary prospect. But we can help you, and we do help people move through that. So yeah, performance conversations is a fascinating
it is, yeah.
topic.
It's going to be good. I think it's going to be really helpful for people who are unfamiliar with it, and it's really good. And then our last one,
health and well-being,
which I think has become more prevalent. Can we use that word? In the sense, big word for me, that, innit? Don't ask me to spell it though. And the well-being, and I think this is certainly, the global pandemics do make you kind of shine your torch beam on how everyone's feeling. And I'm not saying that people weren't doing it before. I think it's just become more to the forefront of most people's consciousness, isn't it? That we've got to really be looking and paying attention to the health and well-being of everybody, of the team. Especially, it can be long. As a therapist, it can be quite challenging on you. You get a lot of, especially depending on what kind you are. If you're sitting down and people are just constantly telling you about the problems, and there's lots of things that can go on with people's lives that then when they start talking come out, and you take all that on, you can be taking on a lot of additional stress, can't you, from other people? So, and it's not, if you're a counsellor, it's something you're trained to do or things, but you're not always trained to deal with those skills.
So for me, it's about, sorry to break in on you. I think it's interesting that, at one level, there's a certain set of basics that you need to put in with an organization that enables everybody to feel safe and engaged and well treated. As you've seen in the last 18 months or so, much bigger focus on perhaps how some of our clients are feeling. Because they've been through various experiences, and you'll have people who are familiar clients to the organization who feel comfortable about rejoining, and those that are new who will know less and therefore may feel uncomfortable. But the same is true for associates and for employees. The whole idea of how we refit together in a slightly different way, having been through what we've been through, means that we just need to pay attention and to be more aware. So I think you and I kind of saw it first when you think of therapy business owners who are working clinically and then trying to run their organization in their quotes spare time, which means that we're working very long hours, getting little time off. That impacts upon the rest of life and is not a good recipe for long-term good health or business success, frankly. And we need to make sure that the environment in which we're working is balanced for all concerned, because you get a much higher performance. And again, kind of thinking back clinically, thinking back in terms of high performing athletes, if you're running flat out all the time, you can't possibly develop and give of your best performance, and some part of your mechanics is going to give at some point because you're not resting and recuperating.
And I also think that it was a good point you made. And I think the other addition I'd make is that it's not always about the business. There's your life outside of work can be a stressor that they can bring in as well, can't they? So I think it's recognizing, in yourself that, and then in your team, if going, who's got an awful lot on the plate, as we've both got kids, and you've had, in relationship, all those kind of problems, people can be bringing in, and what you don't want them to do is that become obviously unhandled, because then the last thing you want is if that's not managed well, then in some cases, certainly we've been aware of, and I've definitely witnessed in my career, is that then starts to impact on the customer because they're not actually present with the client, or they've, so it's a really, really important topic.
It is indeed.
I'm glad we've got it as part of our academy.
Absolutely. So there you have it, a quick canter around Elevate Your Team as a stage of the EYC Academy. If you'd like to find out more, and then go to www.elevateyourclinic.com/launch. So until next time, Andy,
Excellent.
take care.
See you there.